Merck Animal Health is pleased to present an instructional program on the proper handling and administration of Marek's disease vaccines and other poultry vaccines frozen in liquid nitrogen.
Marek's disease has been a long-standing problem in chickens.
Marek's disease vaccines from Merck Animal Health have helped bring about dramatic results in the control of Marek's disease worldwide. However, Marek's disease has by no means been conquered. The virus remains present in virtually all areas of the world, with field strains identified as very virulent, virulent, or non-pathogenic. The reason for the emergence of very virulent and virulent Marek's disease viruses at different times and in different locations has remained largely undetermined. However, Merck Animal Health, an established international leader in poultry research and effective vaccine production, has committed extensive resources worldwide to the expansion and development of research facilities and programs. This ongoing Merck Animal Health commitment to poultry health has resulted in breakthroughs in the past, and those advancements will unquestionably lead to other successes in the future. Marek's disease vaccines and a host of other vaccines play a key role in controlling poultry diseases and the major economic losses they can have on the poultry industry. Hatchery employees make a significant impact on the control of such diseases. Poultry vaccines, like those for Marek's disease, are precision-made products containing live viruses that are sensitive to time, temperature, and contamination. To be effective at protecting both individual birds and entire flocks against disease and premature death, vaccines, diluents, and other components must be properly stored, handled, and administered at the hatchery if they are to be effective in the field.
Even slightly mishandling poultry vaccines, for instance, letting them get too warm, or allowing frozen vaccines to thaw, then refreeze, or administering them improperly, can render them ineffective, making birds and entire flocks vulnerable to infection, experience poor health and insufficient weight gain, or carcass condemnation at the processing plant. Losses such as these can add up to millions of dollars each year.
While hatchery personnel are focused on the day-to-day challenges of incubating eggs and processing day-old chicks, we also need to understand the impact of these jobs on the poultry industry outside hatchery doors. Hatchery personnel represent a key control point for assuring the effectiveness of poultry vaccines, since they are usually responsible for receiving them in shipment, storing them properly, and administering them with care and skill. The importance of proper vaccination cannot be overemphasized. This can be illustrated with a conservative example of losses to a single grower resulting from improper vaccination at the hatchery. If a single flock of 100,000 birds were to experience a 3% condemnation rate due to improper handling, storage, or vaccination techniques, the number of birds lost would be 3,000. If the value of those birds is estimated at only $1.75 each, and it is certainly higher if all factors are considered, the conservatively calculated loss would exceed $5,250.
Even this modest example shows the negative economic consequences of improper preparation and administration of vaccines. Clearly, every step is important, and each person in the process has an important responsibility for the proper protection of every bird. This video is intended to help managers and hatchery technicians of all levels of experience better understand the proper care, handling, and administration of Marek's disease vaccines and other poultry vaccines stored in liquid nitrogen.
This section covers some general practices that should be observed in hatcheries providing Marek's disease vaccination programs. To assure the greatest vaccine efficacy and protection, at least 2 people should be thoroughly trained in vaccine storage and mixing procedures. One of these people should be designated the primary person, and the second should act as a backup so that there is always someone on site who knows and understands proper storage, handling, and administration techniques of vaccine products.
Every hatchery should have a room or lab dedicated to the storage, mixing, and preparation of vaccine products. Vaccine mixing rooms should be clean, well ventilated, and orderly, with plenty of room for housing liquid nitrogen storage containers and, ideally, a refrigerator.
Mixing rooms should contain a sink and cabinet or other dedicated storage areas for syringes, needles, glassware, and other necessary items. Do not use vaccine mixing rooms to store any unrelated items. Occasionally clean air vent registers, overhead cabinets and shelves, and lighting fixtures to remove dust and debris that could contaminate vaccine by falling or being blown into the work area. There should be a dedicated space for safety equipment, including insulated gloves, plastic face shield, safety glasses, aprons, latex gloves, and a first aid kit. Printed checklists for the proper mixing and dosing of all Merix and other frozen vaccines should be clearly posted in the vaccine mixing room. Such checklists are readily available from Merck Animal Health. Make sure there is sufficient space for a water bath for thawing vaccine ampules, as well as space for diluent bags and a work surface sufficient for mixing of vaccine components. Wash hands with soap or sanitizer before handling or preparing vaccine. Merix disease vaccines are provided in frozen form, stored in liquid nitrogen tanks, and are very sensitive to mishandling. Liquid nitrogen levels in cryogenic containers should be carefully monitored and recorded on Merck Animal Health liquid nitrogen tank liquid record sheets on a daily basis. To measure the level of liquid nitrogen in a storage container, carefully open the lid, remove the stopper, and insert a measuring device, such as a measuring stick, until it contacts the bottom of the container. Remove the measuring stick and record the level of liquid nitrogen as indicated by the presence of frost on the stick. Replace the stopper and close the lid immediately after measuring the liquid nitrogen level. Hatchery personnel handling vaccines in liquid nitrogen containers should always wear long-sleeved protective gloves and plastic face shields to avoid contact liquid nitrogen burns or glass cuts resulting from exploding ampules.
Care should also be taken not to inhale liquid nitrogen vapors. If drowsiness or breathing difficulties occur in anyone handling liquid nitrogen, move them to fresh air and ventilate the area. If difficulties persist, or if there is a loss of consciousness, summon a physician immediately, and if necessary, apply artificial breathing techniques by someone qualified to perform CPR.
In addition to keeping detailed records of liquid nitrogen levels, each serial of vaccine and diluent used should also be recorded in a permanent log. Include manufacturer's name and vaccine serial numbers, as well as date and flock information. The number of doses of vaccine used daily should consistently equal the number of chicks vaccinated or eggs inoculated. The numbers should be used as checkpoints to ensure proper dosing. Merck Animal Health offers a broad selection of innovative frozen vaccines for the prevention of common and costly poultry diseases. These vaccines are commonly administered in hatcheries. The care, handling, and mixing instructions contained in this video apply to all of the following vaccines. Innovax ND, Merix disease, Newcastle disease vaccine. Innovax ND SB, Merix disease, Newcastle disease vaccine. Innovax ILT, infectious laryngotracheitis and Merix disease vaccine. Innovax ILT SB, infectious laryngotracheitis Merix disease vaccine. Rismavac, Merix disease vaccine. Risma, Merix disease vaccine. 8903, bursal disease vaccine. Shorbron D, infectious bronchitis vaccine. 2177, tenosynovitis vaccine.
Cleanliness is critical to proper vaccine handling and preparation. Hatchery technicians must thoroughly clean and sanitize the following before mixing vaccine.
Wash hands with soap or hand sanitizer and dry thoroughly. Clean all work surfaces with suitable sanitizing agent before vaccine handling and preparation. Next, gather all necessary materials and supplies, including sterile 18-gauge needles and syringes, a clean ampule snapper, a lab-type thermometer, alcohol swabs for sanitizing the diluent bag stopper, a supply of distilled water, a clean water bath to thaw frozen vaccine, the diluent bag, any additives such as dye or an FDA-approved antibiotic, Identify and obtain a source of fresh distilled water to use for the vaccine thawing water bath. Prepare and clean the water bath. Pour the distilled water into the water bath. Heat the water to approximately 77 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Use a thermometer to ensure the water bath is in the proper temperature range. Although all Merck Animal Health diluent is sterile as manufactured, it is still good practice to check it due to possible puncture at the hatchery or in transport.
Using a lighted background or light table, carefully inspect all diluent bags before adding Merck's vaccines. Good diluent is transparent. If the diluent appears murky or cloudy, don't take chances. Use another bag. Use of contaminated diluent can lead to disastrous results.
Some customers may choose to add a dye and/or an FDA-approved antibiotic to the diluent. Use an alcohol swab to sterilize the stopper on the bottle of dye or antibiotic. Use a new, sterile 18-gauge needle to draw out the correct amount of dye and/or antibiotic and inject it into the diluent through the port. Gently swirl the diluent bag to mix the diluent with the dye and/or antibiotic. Do not shake the diluent bag. Wait 5 minutes for the diluent to stabilize.
When thawing frozen ampules, do not thaw more than 4 ampules at a time. With the water bath at the proper temperature, the thaw time should take between 70 and 90 seconds.
While wearing long-sleeved insulated gloves and a plastic face shield, draw the vaccine ampule cane from the liquid nitrogen tank high enough to permit 1 ampule of vaccine to be removed at a time. Make sure you've selected the correct vaccine from the liquid nitrogen container. Return the cane to the container and close it immediately. Never return an ampule to the liquid nitrogen tank after it has been removed from the cane. Merck Animal Health ampules are frozen, and the canes are then deliberately placed in the liquid nitrogen storage canisters upside down. This is done as a safety measure and provides the user with a quick, visual verification that the vaccine has not been inadvertently thawed and refrozen. Vaccine in a frozen state should occupy only the normal, flat-bottomed portion of the ampule. If a substantial amount of vaccine is found in the tip of the ampule, do not use that ampule. It has been thawed and refrozen. If there is only a small amount of vaccine in the tip, this could be the result of surface tension or liquid migration before the ampule was frozen and should still be usable. Thaw the removed ampule or ampules of vaccine in 77 to 80 degree Fahrenheit distilled water. Thawing will normally occur in about 70 to 90 seconds. At mixing, diluent should also be at a temperature of approximately 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit and free of foreign material. Remove thawed ampules from the water bath and dry them with a clean towel to prevent contamination. Gently agitate or swirl thawed ampules to mix the contents. Lightly flick the neck to return to the bottom of the container any vaccine held in the neck or top. Snap the ampule at the neck using a clean ampule snapper or towel to prevent any contamination. Insert opened ampules into a rack for handling during the mixing process. Using a fresh syringe fitted with a sterile 18-gauge needle, carefully draw all of the vaccine out of the ampule and slowly add it to the diluent bag. This should take at least 3 seconds. Draw some diluent back into the syringe and flush the vaccine ampule to wash out any remaining vaccine. Use the needle and syringe to draw the diluent and flushed vaccine out of the ampule and inject it back into the diluent bag through the port. Gently swirl the diluent bag containing the vaccine mixture until the contents are thoroughly mixed. Do not shake. Write the time prepared on the diluent bag. Place the prepared vaccine into an ice bath or put it into a refrigerator until ready for use. Once mixed with diluent, the vaccine should be used within 45 minutes. Merck Animal Health provides high-quality sterile vaccines and diluents. However, for additional monitoring, the plate test may be used. Successful administration of poultry vaccines can be assured through the proper cleaning and regular maintenance of vaccinating equipment. It is critical that hatchery personnel follow the manufacturer's maintenance and sanitation guidelines, including dosage calibration and needle and syringe replacement schedules. Failure to properly clean and maintain vaccination machines can greatly compromise the effectiveness of Marek's disease vaccines, resulting in significant losses. Prepare and load only enough vaccine for 45 minutes of use. Periodically agitate the vaccine container on the IV stand to avoid settling out of Marek's vaccine cells in the diluent. Merck Animal Health recommends agitating mixed vaccine every 15 minutes. Regularly check the machines for malfunctions and change the needles as required. Make sure you replace needles with new, sterile needles of the correct gauge and size. Using the wrong size needle compromises the quality of the vaccination. Always use the proper technique when vaccinating day-of-age chicks. Clean any debris or other contaminants from the vaccinator when checking or changing needles during processing. Do not let the machine run out of vaccine. Use aseptic technique when changing vaccine bags.
Don't forget to check your work. For quality assurance purposes, it's important to always check chicks in the boxes throughout processing.
Look for wet chicks, indicative of machine misfires or other problems in which the bird was not injected, but vaccine was dispensed. Properly vaccinated birds, missed birds, those with no evidence of needle vaccination, and improper placement of the injection on the bird's anatomy. Make necessary adjustments to the vaccinator or the technique before resuming vaccination. Upon completion of the work cycle, clean and sterilize the injector machine and destroy any remaining mixed vaccine. Never store mixed vaccines.
Following these guidelines will result in a safe and successful vaccination program. Some Marek's disease vaccines and other vaccines call for injecting birds in ovo, or in the egg, while the chick embryo is still developing. The in ovo vaccination technique provides many advantages for building immunity in developing chick embryos. Many hatcheries vaccinate birds in ovo. There are different types and brands of in ovo vaccinators in use, each with their specific handling, setup, sanitizing, and maintenance instructions provided by the manufacturer.
Just like vaccinating live birds, in ovo vaccination requires the same high level of attention to vaccine handling and preparation, as well as the care, sanitation, and calibration of vaccinating equipment to ensure the efficacy of the vaccine as the birds hatch and grow to market size.
Dirty equipment, vaccinator calibration error, poor lighting, and improperly positioned eggs are some of the leading causes of vaccine failure in birds vaccinated in ovo. To assure the integrity and efficacy of vaccine used in ovo, hatchery technicians should always follow specific vaccinator instructions and apply the following practices.
Gently agitate vaccine bags at least once every 15 minutes. This helps keep vaccine component particles equally suspended throughout the diluent and helps ensure even flock coverage with the vaccine. Again, always use aseptic technique when changing out vaccine bags. Technicians should sanitize their hands and gloves prior to handling or changing vaccine bags. Swab the insertion area or stopper of the new bag with a clean alcohol swab before changing bags.
QC checks should be performed on a regular basis to ensure equipment is administering vaccine correctly.
Merck Animal Health hopes this presentation has been helpful in demonstrating the proper handling and mixing guidelines for poultry vaccines frozen in liquid nitrogen. These guidelines are critical for employee safety and success, as well as for helping ensure that vaccine products work as intended to help produce a healthy and wholesome food supply.
Hatchery technicians are very important to the growth and success of the international poultry industry. Even though you might vaccinate birds every day, it's only through careful monitoring and frequent review of every aspect of vaccine handling, preparation, and administration that consistent, successful results can be assured.